After a 4-year-long hiatus beginning in 2010, Weezer emerged from the depths of mediocrity to release one of their most beloved albums, Everything Will Be Alright. It was an album for the fans. No longer would we have to suffer through collaborations with Lil Wayne or something they put together in literally 2 weeks. EWBAITE, as many called it, was the people's album. Sadly, those people were mainly Weezer fans and critics, a rather small percentage of the world's population. So, despite it earning favorable reviews and the title of Weezer's comeback, it sold rather poorly. It debuted at number 5 on Billboard's top album sales chart and stayed on the list for 6 weeks. Hearing that without context gives you the impression that it performed adequately well, but when compared to other Weezer albums, not so much. Especially when you look at Weezer's highest position on that list and its longest time on that list. But we mustn't put all the blame on poor EWBAITE's shoulders. Weezer has been on a downward spiral of success almost since the band's debut album. It's a concept that's been mentioned in nearly all my videos about the band. Failure led to a confusing mess of an album. Failure led to a great comeback album. Failure led to a cruise. Failure led to a return to college. And failure led to a song about gay sex and weed. But this time was much less clear-cut. Not since Pinkerton had an album been received well but sold poorly, and even in that case opinions didn't shift positively until years later. They couldn't just totally change the sound of this new album or all the good faith from EWBAITE would be wasted. Yet, if they stuck too closely to that formula, the sales wouldn't meet the band's expectations. A new type of balance had to be struck. But after years of struggling to strike balances between any sound, Rivers Cuomo understood that it was time to think totally outside the box. Not that far outside. That's too close, didn't pan out all the way last time. Oh, now that's interesting. Jake Sinclair was born March 7th, 1985, making him 9 years old when Blue came out, 11 when Pinkerton came out, and 16 when Green came out. 16 was the same age I was when I first got into Weezer, so it's only fitting that in high school, Jake himself started a Weezer cover band called WannaBeezer. What you wouldn't assume is that 8 years later, at 24, Jake Sinclair would be a recording engineer on Raditude. Under the mentorship of the album's producer Butch Walker, Jake got to work with his favorite band every day. Butch would later collaborate with the band again on Pacific Daydream, but his apprentice clearly made quite the impression, as Jake would come back to work with the band far sooner. At the bright young age of 29, Jake would become one of Weezer's youngest producers on none other than the White Album. If you're wondering how a song engineer on the band's worst received album got Sinclair a job producing White, well, a fan on the All Things Weezer forum asked him the same thing, and he actually responded. In fact, Jake was active on All Things Weezer for the album's entire development. He explained, "I reconnected with Rivers in 2014. Lured him in with a 5 seconds of summer co-write that was ultimately rejected. We hit it off as a couple of OCD weirdos. The band moved over to Crush shortly after, and we started forming concepts for TWA. The first thing I did was ask him to grow a beard because he had one during the making of Pinkerton. Jake's first order of business was to give the fans what they wanted. But would the rest of his producing be up to snuff? Would a fan's input really be enough to save Weezer's image? I guess we'll find out right now." When Jake entered the fold, Rivers did the professional thing. He gathered the band and Jake in a conference room with a big table in it and stood at the front in a stuffy suit while flipping through slides of a PowerPoint presentation featuring all of his ideas. Just kidding! Sometime in early 2015, Rivers just showed Sinclair his Dropbox account with nearly 250 demos in it. And as far as I know, they just kinda sat there and listened to all of them. None of the demos really popped out to them except for one. An English version of a song Rivers had written for his Japanese language side project, Scott and Rivers. The original was known as
Gary Farina,
or California in English, though it was later renamed California Kids. The themes of the song, especially the ocean sounds at the beginning and the references to California, subsequently served as the inspiration for the entire album thereafter. Every song that would eventually make its way onto White would have to do so through the filter of California Kids' beach/summer theme. But that doesn't mean that the band couldn't lean on some old tricks. The White Album, just like every other album, would have another heavy inspiration: women. Weezer owes the entire female gender a huge thank you for inspiring half of their discography, and that's a conservative estimate. Here's one example from every album before White. I'm just saying, with all the inspiration, I think at the very least they should make a song thanking girls. Alright, close enough. Thank God for Girls was the very first single released by the band from the White Album. Every source online references how the name of the song was first mentioned in a tweet by Rivers in January of 2010. I can't possibly imagine what Rivers' state of mind was at the time, as the tweet immediately before this stated, "Life can't be all orgasms," and then the following tweet was, "Frickin' love my life." Regardless of the amazing week Rivers was having, aspects of the song came from way before 2010, like the first 2 lines of the second verse.
I'm so glad I got a girl to think of, even though she isn't mine,
which Rivers wrote all the way back in 1997. I actually learned this from an annotation Rivers wrote for the track on Genius Lyrics. For this album, more than any other, you'll be seeing a lot of Genius annotations, as Rivers really got involved with that stuff around this time. For example, he explained how the name of the song seemed like a big, mainstreamish title, but I knew I would be able to pull all kinds of weirdness out of it. He also wrote about how in his first draft he spelled cannoli, cannoli. And for the lines in the post-chorus, he wrote, "I'm so jealous of the hooker-uppers. Seems like it's so easy to get laid now. All these good-looking, athletic young guys are getting so much free sex. It kills me. Laxitudes. Such a bummer. Such a bummer. To be evaluated by women, to be graded, to be rated. Where do I stand? How big? How strong? How enduring? How energetic? How inventive? So sad that it comes to this. So sad. It is a competition, and I am being compared." That may sound weird, but the explanation is even weirder. This song, more than any other, was inspired by Rivers' time using Tinder. He never met up with any of the girls and insists the conversations remained platonic. But, I guess the app still left an impression on him. Yeah, let's move on. Girl We Got a Good Thing, or I guess just Good Thing for short, was one of the few demos from Rivers' Dropbox to later be repurposed to better fit the beach aesthetic. Yet another song about a girl, it initially went under the name Codependent back in the EWBAITE era. But don't let the title and some of the moodier lyrics fool you. Codependent sounded like a track straight out of Black.
we have had a migraine since the day we met. We won't get relief until we're dead.
Rivers, for his part, actually came to his senses on this one without the help of Jake Sinclair. He recognized that although the topic of a messy relationship was intriguing, something about the song was just off. But at one point he sang the lyric, "Girl, we got a good thing," instead of "We're getting codependent" with the melody of the chorus. And something just clicked. In the end, only these lyrics in Good Thing ended up bearing any resemblance to Codependent, which ultimately makes Good Thing a much more interesting song. All this singing about how much fun they're having together, occasionally getting interrupted with much more serious lyrics, is a way better analogy for codependent relationships. Sometimes you feel really, really great together. Other times you can't stand each other. The song also serves as a great example of the influence the Beach Boys had on this album. I can't really explain it. This commenter says it's something to do with the sleigh bells, but when I hear Good Thing, I think good vibrations. Rivers may have been able to clean up Codependent's mess by himself, but the same can't be said for the next track, Do You Wanna Get High? It was the first song the band recorded after getting Sinclair involved, and the young producer really had his work cut out for him. At this point in development, all Rivers had were the lyrics,
Do you wanna get high?
Sing just like that for the first verse, a mumbled chorus, and vague inspiration from the same relationship that inspired Oh Girlfriend on Green. Regardless, Sinclair very intentionally kept his influence measured. He wrote on the All Things Weezer forum, "Usually at this stage, I'll co-write with the artist. But like you guys, I prefer it when Rivers writes entirely by himself, and by far the majority of the album is that." Sinclair advised that Rivers swap the chorus and the verse, creating the moodier melody. This was enough advice to get Rivers to create a demo which he sent to Jake.
Best that I want you to get it done, do. I want to sign it on time. Do you wanna get high?
However, the next time Jake visited Rivers' house, he found that the Weezer frontman was uncertain about everything to do with the song, down to its seemingly pro-drug title. At this point, Jake had started reading the Pinkerton diaries, a collection of journals, emails, letters, photos, and school papers written by Rivers during Pinkerton's arduous production. Jake used the Pinkerton diaries to inspire his next piece of advice. I advised him to write the song about himself, his own experiences, a narrative, and to keep the Do You Wanna Get High lyric/title. A day or two later, he sent over the new demo with the lyrics as they are. It was through Jake's influence that the song came out sounding more like Pinkerton than Green. I'm glad that people picked up on the Pinkerton style production. There's a lot more of that coming. I'll take a Green comparison, but to my ears, it's not as slick as that. The drums are more bombastic, everything more raw/unpredictable. As you can likely tell by the forum post, Do You Wanna Get High was only the second single off of White. This song, along with Thank God for Girls, gave a taste of what was to come. With one being weird and the other being mellow, people were already citing this as evidence of a Pinkerton comeback. But hold your horses, we're just getting started. Something I've learned in this video is that oftentimes when you see a Weezer song is co-written by someone other than Rivers, their influence is really minor. A great example of this is on our next song, King of the World, which features a songwriting credit from Jared Kritzstein. Jake Sinclair yet again assured fans on the forum that, let's just say that co-writes aren't always done in the same room, and sometimes the co-writers never even meet. And sometimes, a co-writer can be someone that doesn't even have any contribution to the lyrics/melody, but his/her instrumental track was the one used as a writing tool to get an idea started and then is replaced. Sometimes. Keep in mind, he was saying this in direct response to the songwriting credit on King of the World. Basically, in a professional way, saying Jared Kritzstein had almost nothing to do with the song. Instead, Rivers himself used the platform to make a song dedicated to another inspiration, his adoring wife. However, this isn't the average song about vaguely loving your wife. King of the World is a song written for Kyoko Cuomo, with lyrics like Uncle Sam dropped an atom bomb, Dad hit you on the head just for holding your chopsticks wrong, and shockingly even Mom locked you in a shed, all being references to Kyoko's heritage and childhood. Yes, she was literally locked in a shed as a child. Kyoko actually contributed a lot to the genius lyric annotations to King of the World, and I desperately hope you go check those out after this video, because it really is too extensive and detailed to put it all in. Regardless, I'll still quote her annotation on the chorus. I had this phobia for 30 plus years. I knew that something was wrong with me, but I never thought it was something you can fix. Recently, I finally decided to seek professional help and tackle on this issue. It might be a good thing to be sensitive to others' feeling, but it got to the point that it is interfering not only my life, but my family's happiness. And I fed up with being depressed. After started treatment, I started to pay attention to countless not newsworthy good news. The world is not that bad. Thank you, and I love you, Rivers. Summer Lane and Drunk Dory is Rivers' favorite track on the album. He spoke extensively about the song on the Song Exploder podcast, but to summarize, when Rivers finds songs on Spotify with cool chord progressions, he puts them on a little playlist for later use. One of these songs was Walk Away Renee by The Left Blank. Here's their song, and here's Rivers. Continuing the theme of reusing, reducing, and recycling certain aspects of other songs, the verse melody in some lyrics came out of a demo from the Maladroit era called Oh She Left Me There, as well as the melody of the bridge which comes from the demo's Rest in Peace and Back of Your Heart. Finally, the name of the song came from two moms Rivers met at a school function for his daughter. One woman's husband had two nicknames for her: School Year Elaine throughout most of the year, and Summer Elaine when school got out. Another woman joined in the conversation, adding that her husband also had two nicknames for her. Both women were later thanked in the liner notes for the album. Summer Elaine and Drunk Dory didn't have any other songwriting credits. It was all from the mind of Rivers Cuomo. The same cannot be said for the next track on the album, LA Girls. Shockingly enough for such a recent album, it was actually mostly from the mind of Brian Bell. Even more shocking, it was also developed with the help of Brian's bandmate Luther Russell from The Relationship, though this is no freak me out. Brian's version boasts a very similar melody to the finished product, but almost none of the same lyrics. You can credit the song's third writer, Rivers Cuomo, for that. Brian's version was very clearly about a guy who's used to being rejected by the vapid and vain girls of Los Angeles who mainly go for jocks.
I wish they could see what's right about me, but all that I own is a skateboard, a Walkman, and Batman that sits on my knee.
Yeah, it's a little incelly, but it's Weezer, what are you gonna do? Rivers' version is, less clearly defined. I had to lean on genius a bit for this one. It similarly tells the story of a guy desperate for the affection of an uncaring woman. Though instead of blaming it on some giga-chad stealing his girl, he blames it on the girl herself, calling her immature for not wanting to be with him. Holy shit, Rivers rewrote it to make it more incelly? I guess some things never change. The song's one saving grace is how good it is. It just hits the ear right. Besides, some of the lyrics are really innovative, making reference to the film Whiplash, Dante's Divine Comedy, and Tower 28, which is a lifeguard tower many people believe to be on the album cover. Oh yeah, the cover. Check it out. It's the guys, just the four of them, standing there, menacingly. It's truly the perfect album cover, with one foot planted firmly in the past, while also boasting plenty of innovation that furthers the theme of the album. That's what defines White, really. Jake Sinclair constantly pulling to make the album have that classic Weezer sound, while Rivers constantly pulls in a modern direction. An improper balance between these two sounds could have caused the creation of another Make-Believe or Raditude. But with Jake always firmly keeping the fans in mind, he managed to stop Rivers from going too far. I guess it's only fitting that our next song on the track list is Jacked Up.
Say the line, Mark!
It's a song about a girl.
Yeah!
Specifically, the same girl from Do You Wanna Get High and Oh Girlfriend. You know, I'm starting to think this relationship wasn't the best. The only reason we know it's about the same girl is because the first verse of the song starts with,
If I stay tonight, gonna fall in love.
a reference that Rivers explained is to the fact that although they only saw each other at night, he refused to ever spend the night with this girl specifically. This is because when he was young, his mother told him, your souls combine if you sleep with someone overnight. The song also features my favorite recurring Weezer metaphor, dead flowers, with the lyrics,
But why do my flowers always die?
sharing similar meaning to the song Dead Roses. What I'm saying is, Rivers needs to hire a gardener ASAP. The situation is only worsening. Endless Bummer was co-written with Brian Bell, but if King of the World and LA Girls taught us anything, this credit should be taken with a big hefty grain of salt. Besides, there are many other influences in the song that are much more clear. Many people online believe the hey heys at the beginning of the song are a reference to Island in the Sun. This is especially likely with the two songs' beach themes and Jake Sinclair's input. The song also slips in another reference to the Beach Boys in its title and the lyric, I Just Want This Summer to End, both of which reference the album Endless Summer. Later in that same verse, there's mention of the cities of Paloma and Santa Rosa in California, another theme mentioned earlier. Oh, and we can't forget the songs about a relationship with a girl. Mainly a breakup that ruins the protagonist's summer. Moreover, from continued analysis of the lyrics and while listening to the song, I've also found that it perfectly matches another inspiration for the album. The somber tone of the song and the almost comically pathetic protagonist fits right alongside Pinkerton tracks like Across the Sea and Butterfly. That means Endless Bummer is the one song I've found so far which hits all the inspirations I've listed throughout the video. Beach vibes, the Beach Boys, California, girls, classic Weezer, and... oh. We're missing one. Yeah, Rivers' wife was an inspiration for the song King of the World. That would have been cool, but as you can see from the lyrics, there's no mention of Rivers' wife. Wait, hold on. If you look at Genius lyrics, this line reads, Dreaming About My Life, but if you look at the White Album's physical lyric sheet, it reads, Dreaming About My Wife. When asked about the legitimate lyric on Facebook, Rivers replied, What's the difference? That means Endless Bummer hits every inspiration I've found for the White Album. Isn't that just the perfect way to end the album and the video? Hitting every major point I've made, and... oh. We're entering uncharted territory. I've talked about make-believe and everything will be alright in the end so far on this channel, which means I've never gone in depth on a Weezer album with a deluxe variant. This is nothing special. Weezer's been putting out their B-sides along with certain releases of their singles since the Blue Album. If you're wondering what the first ever deluxe edition was, that would be the Red Album. But enough stalling. White's got some of the best B-sides of any album by the band, so let's give them a closer look. Starting off strong, we've got the patriotic and oddly successful song, I Love the USA. It didn't top any Billboard charts or anything, but it always found a way to catch the headlines. First, the song was essentially commissioned by Apple Music and NASA to commemorate the Juno mission to Jupiter. Then Rivers annotated the Genius lyrics page of the song with various cryptic poems that I don't think any publication has deciphered, and are probably worthy of their own video. Then, the song was used in a promo for the 2016 American Olympic team in July. And finally, in October, the music video came out, featuring a character played by Patton Oswalt sneaking into the Oval Office. The video most clearly features him singing and goofing around, but at the end he tries to press the big red nuclear button on the president's desk, only to be pushed off by a Secret Serviceman played by Rivers, who then accidentally presses the button himself. On the ground, Oswalt's character says, "Just trying to make America great!" And then the whole planet explodes. I'm sure you can imagine how this music video inspired a few articles in late 2016. The Jacked Up remix is not a song I thought I'd have to mention in this video, but it's an official track on White Deluxe, so I have to mention it. It features vocals and obvious remixing from Michael Fitzpatrick of Fitz and the Tantrums and Nadia of Pussy Riot. It's okay. As a fan of Jimmy Eat World, I can tolerate a little repetition on the deluxe album. Friend of a Friend is a really special song, in the sense that it's one of the few Weezer songs that are relatable, but also inspirational. There's not much about the song online, but that's fine. I don't think this is a track that needs to be overanalyzed by a rant-sona. It's just one of Weezer's most down-to-earth songs. Friends of Friends are some of the most accessible people to pursue romantically. They are this very particular group of people that are not so close that it's weird to try to further the relationship with them, but not so far that they're difficult to approach. The fact that the song also focuses on rejection by a friend of a friend makes it all the more relatable. But the final verse ensures that it isn't an ode to incels. Instead of shaming the girl for not liking him, the song ends with the lyrics, "Then you dropped your flowers on the ground, someday I know that you will come around. No hate, I know it is what it is. Deep down I know you're just a friend of a friend." Sure, the protagonist at surface level has hope that she'll change her mind, but deep down he accepts and understands that she's just not interested. It's a great message. Don't take rejection personally. It is what it is. Still, this is a very out-of-place track considering how close it is to LA Girls. Fake Smiles and Nervous Laughter is yet another song that had its title tweeted by Cuomo, this time in 2011. Although we can't say how much of the album was inspired by the EWBAITE era of writing, we can say how much of it was inspired yet again by the Pinkerton era. Why? Well, here's the cover of the single. I rest my case, Your Honor. No, but seriously, the fucking first line of the first verse is grungy girls and punk rock boys. There's no question where the strongest inspiration lies. Yet, in spite of fitting so well with any Pinkerton track, it fits in equally well with the rest of White. The vocalizing at the end of every line in the verses and the layered background singing in the chorus perfectly demonstrates that Beach Boys influence. If Endless Bummer is the perfect coming together of every inspiration, Fake Smiles and Nervous Laughter perfectly sums up the big two. And that's all the tracks. Finally, once and for all. It took a while, but it was worth it to go in depth on all 14. Wait, 14? That was only 13. Son of a bitch. I intentionally saved the second track of Wind in Our Sail for last. I genuinely forgot I did this until this point in the script. It may not have very much info about it on Weezerpedia, but I don't need it. The trivia isn't what matters for this song. It's what the song symbolizes. Although it disguises itself as yet another Weezer love song, it holds a deeper meaning. The name of the song and the first line of the chorus are a reference to Weezer's comeback. Wind in Our Sail is about perseverance. The first verse is about a busted, broken ship. Our protagonist's hands are burnt from maneuvering the rope on board, and they have albatross around their neck. In real life, an albatross is considered a good omen to nautical folks. In the poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, the protagonist accidentally shoots and kills an albatross with a crossbow. The character then has to carry the psychological burden of killing the ship's good luck charm, which is manifested as him literally hanging the albatross around his neck. The protagonist of the song having albatross around their necks implies that at some point they sabotage themselves. Then in the chorus, the protagonist manages to catch some wind in their sail through the use of teamwork. For the rest of the song, they bask in the success, comparing it to Darwin's voyage on the HMS Beagle, and Mendel's discovery of basic genetics through experimentation on peas. Both of these events mark the high point of popularity and acclaim for both men. Finally, the bridge makes reference to the Greek myth of Sisyphus, a story that many people believe to be about the absurd repetition of life. However, a famous essay by philosopher Albert Camus by the same name postulates that the struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. So, in Weezer terms, after a few failed albums, the band is in rough shape, and they have no one to blame but themselves, fitting the metaphor of being stranded at sea in the albatross. Then, through years of hard work, they find minor success again, with EWBAITE, fitting the metaphor of finally getting some wind in their sail. Then, they use that minor success to shape their biggest success in over a decade, the White Album, fitting the comparisons to Mendel and Darwin's great success. Finally, the bridge about Sisyphus symbolizes that the band is destined to always be fighting an uphill battle to find critical and commercial success, but they're happy to do so. So, was their prediction in this song right? If EWBAITE was the wind hitting their sail, would White be slicing waves at 40 knots? With Everything Will Be Alright in the end, the band had successfully pleased critics and listeners alike for the first time in years. But they refused to settle for good enough. They got that little bit of wind in their sail and they used it flawlessly. The album released on April 1st, 2016, but its performance was no joke. Metacritic is an aggregate of reviews from basically every source online, and the critic score was a 71 out of 100. Just slightly worse than EWBAITE, but still better than any album to come after except OK Human. Critics mainly criticized the What the fuck are these guys even saying? The only truly negative review was from a publication called Magnet Magazine. I went to their website to try to find more detail as to what they didn't like, only to be met with further dissection of this fourth and most pallid, chromatic chromosome and Rivers Cuomo's rapidly unraveling musical DNA would be as pointless and obscene as autopsying a baby inside a dingo. To translate to how normal people talk, explaining why the new album sucks is pointless because it sucks. Just because you hide it behind your thesaurus doesn't make it any less of a logical fallacy. Then they go on to say, how did Cuomo go from, I asked you to go to the Green Day concert, you said you never heard of them, to, we could ride a Greyhound all the way to the Galapagos, to, just a couple lovebirds happy to be singing, from, I've got your letter, you've got my song. So what they're saying is that the main problem with the album is the goofy and sometimes sappy lyrics. That's fine, I guess. I'm sure somebody could agree with that. But the way they prove this point is absolutely awful. To prove how nonsensical the album is, they reference a line from King of the World. But in that song, Rivers writing about how if he had unlimited power, he would use it to make his wife happy. Yet, instead of writing, if I was king of the world, I'd buy you pretty jewelry and a mansion, which is a lyric that would make more logical sense, he writes about doing wacky bullshit, like riding a Greyhound bus to an archipelago off the coast of Ecuador. Why? Because it's more fun that way. Besides, Magnet clearly doesn't have a problem with songs having abstract and weird lyrics. Clearly not, because they compare King of the World to El Scorcho, a song that starts with the lyrics, "Goddamn you half Japanese girls, do it to me every time. Oh, the redhead said you shred the cello, and I'm jello, baby." That is the song they're saying had far better lyrics than King of the World. King of the World is goofy and makes no sense. The song that starts with being horny for mixed-race girls is way more grounded and serious. That's what I think when I listen to El Scorcho too. Like, come on guys, have a bit of fun. Stop taking yourself so seriously. Furthermore, they compare Girl We Got a Good Thing to Across the Sea. Now, I'm not saying Good Thing is a better song given further analysis. Across the Sea is a very vulnerable and passionate song from a lonely, desperate man. But keep in mind, up until now, Magnet Magazine has absolutely refused to consider the deeper meanings of any White Album song. So instead, I'll treat Across the Sea how they treat Good Thing and King of the World, entirely at surface level. The song is about a 26-year-old rock star who falls desperately in love with a teenage fan who wrote him one letter. The letter asked questions like, what's your favorite food and what's your birthday? He became obsessed with the letter, sniffing it and imagining what clothes the girl who wore it wears to school, and imagining how his teenage fan. And you're saying that without digging any deeper into the meaning of the song, purely and objectively, it is a lyrically better song than Good Thing. You're saying you can read the lyrics, I wonder what clothes you wear to school, I wonder how you decorate your room, I wonder how you yourself, and think it's such better songwriting than Good Thing that it doesn't even require explanation? Fuck off. If they had issues with songs being nonsensical or sappy, they could have found examples of more grounded and somber tracks. But I think it's clear that by using tracks like El Scorcho and Across the Sea, they're showing they weren't interested in putting in the effort to reference a deep cut like Butterfly or Long Time Sunshine, which would have done a significantly better job at proving their point. Though, still not a good enough job to make their point any more valid. I attacked this piece of shit excuse for an alternative music magazine to express to you the pettiness of people's criticism for this album. I've read the reviews. The problem that critics have with this album is plain and simple that it's modern Weezer. They can barely muster any criticism other than, new Weezer bad. Much like the jackasses who refuse to listen to anything past Pinkerton because they heard Can't Stop Partying once on the radio in 2009. These morons are simply stuck in the past. It doesn't matter if the song sounds like this,
I'm just a friend of a friend and I'd like to get to know you too.
or like this.
I can't stop partying.
These morons legitimately can't tell the difference because it doesn't sound like this.
My name's Jonas.
That's not to say you can't dislike the White Album. I'm sure there exists a legitimate reason why not to like it, and I guarantee many of you don't think it's perfect. But if you can't criticize it without referencing or comparing it to another Weezer album, then your criticism is dog shit. It's not criticism if you can't point at something that the band could actually improve. It's just whining. Any of you who've taken a high school art class know that criticism without anything constructive is just you being a dick. Speaking of dicks, it's tradition at this point to mention Pitchfork's rating. They gave it a 6.2 out of 10. Again, claiming that the only value found in the album is the stuff that sounds right off of Pinkerton Deluxe. If you want me to rant about Pitchfork, you're gonna have to wait until my video about OK Human. Well, we've hit almost all the points I wanted to hit. I guess it's time we come back to our discussion at the beginning of the video. White was written to follow up the band's critical comeback, but also to serve as the band's commercial comeback. So, how did they do? Drumroll please. On Billboard's official top album sales chart, White debuted at number 2 and stayed on the chart for 7 weeks, only being beaten out by the album Cleopatra by the Lumineers upon release. But understand something. This isn't top rock albums or top alternative albums, though the band did do the best they ever have in those charts. Weezer was put in direct competition with all other bands releasing albums in April 2006. They had to compete with the country, hip-hop, and pop genres, as well as other rock bands. And they got number 2. Maybe it wasn't the comeback to the green and make-believe era of success they wanted, but perhaps that's a good thing. Back then, they traded in their artistic integrity to do what was popular. Finally, after Everything Will Be Alright in the End and the White Album, Weezer had learned their lesson and never slipped up ever again.
God damn it!
Jokes aside, I know the word masterpiece is thrown around a lot online. On YouTube especially, masterpiece often implies that the video creator is simply a big fan of the subject matter. I try to avoid those big YouTube tropes as much as I can, but I really think White deserves it. I personally didn't even want to use the word for this video at first. I wanted to save it for Pinkerton or OK Human. But I think that White is a different type of masterpiece. It manages to be genuine without being depressing, and enjoyable without disappointing anyone. A big fan of 90s Weezer, 2000s Weezer, modern Weezer, and no Weezer at all could find something to like about White. That is, if some of these demographics could share the open mind of the others. Rivers Cuomo finally made the album he always wanted to make. A masterpiece that everyone could love. But if you disagree, I'm all ears, and the comments will always be open to you. And if you agree, well, let me know why. If you excuse me, I'm going to be taking the world's longest nap. And I'm going to bask in my successful analysis of every single song to even remotely touch this album. No, next time, I'm not even... What is wrong with you? Why is there so many songs? I don't want to talk about these ones. I just want to go home. I'm tired. Fuck you. This is so stupid. Stop making songs. There's too many songs. I don't even like talking about music. I want to talk about ballet.